Hi everyone, our topic is sulfur dioxide and sulfites. I'm Faye, and let me introduce my groupmates, Catherine, Chandini, Ave, and Sally. Now, let's move to the introduction and begin with sulfur. Elemental sulfur exists in Earth's crust and the volcanic regions. For many centuries, people made sulfur dioxide by burning sulfur. Sulfur dioxide has a pungent smell and can form sulfurous acid when dissolving in water. When it dissolves in alkali, it would produce sulfites. When sulfur species dissolve in aqueous solutions, an equilibrium is established among bisulfite ion, and sulfur dioxide. Sulfurous acid is a dibasic acid and has two pKa values. Distribution of the three ionic forms is shown in the graph. The different state mainly depends on the pH of food. As the pH decreases, the proportion of the sulfur dioxide increases and bisulfite ion concentration decreases. When pH is over 7, sulfite ion is the predominant species. Also, the concentration and water content can affect the states of the sulfur dioxide. Disulfite ion mainly exists in dehydrated products with high concentration and low water activity. Among the different species, the unionized form has the most pronounced inhibitory effect. Some researchers proved that undissociated sulfurous acid was the only form active against yeast. The possible reason for the increased effectiveness is that unionized sulfur dioxide can pass across the cell membrane. Regarding the use of the sulfur dioxide, Homer was the first person to use sulfur dioxide as a disinfectant by burning sulfur to clean home in the ancient Greek. Nowadays, this method is still used for bleaching materials. The earliest recorded food use of sulfur dioxide was the treating wines in ancient Rome. Romans discovered that making sulfur candles burned inside the empty vessels could keep them fresh and absent from vinegar smell. Also, they have been used as antimicrobials and antioxidants in various foods. Regarding the safety of the sulfur dioxide, some individuals may have hypersensitivity towards sulfites. Also, some sulfited foods have been observed to be toxic after storage. So, although using recommended concentration is harmless to health, the safety of sulfur dioxide and sulfites is still controversial. Now, let my groupmates give you more information about the application, toxicity, and the regulation about sulfur dioxide and sulfites.
Sulfiting agents are most commonly and widely used in food industries as food additives. They're not only used as preservatives but also plays an important role in inhibition of enzymatic and non-enzymatic browning reactions. They are also used as antioxidant, bleaching agents, and acidulants. Most raw vegetables and fruit undergo rapid discoloration or lose their natural appearance on exposure to air, like wilting and browning edges of lettuce, browning of cut apples and peeled potatoes, blackening of avocado pulp. In order to prevent such reactions, sulfiting agents are added. The most common example to explain such reaction is discoloration of peeled or raw potatoes due to enzymatic oxidation of tyrosine and other orthodihydric phenol to melanin. This reaction occurs due to presence of enzyme polyphenol oxidase. Tyrosine is oxidized to 3,4-dihydroxyphenylalanine, which further oxidizes to form quinones. This then further undergoes cyclization reaction to form indole derivatives that condenses to form melanin. It's been reported that addition of sulfite reduces the activity of polyphenol oxidase by forming quinone sulfite complex. A similar type of reaction occurs in seafood like shrimps and lobster, causing a phenomenon known as melanosis, or presence of black spot due to enzymatic oxidation of phenolics to quinones. But oxidation is not the only factor. Other factors like presence of microorganisms, which includes protease and pseudomonas species, and formation of hydrogen sulfide gas that reacts with the metal ion present in the lobster shell, thus resulting in melanosis. It is suggested that addition of bisulfite ions inhibits the action of polyphenol oxidase by two mechanisms. First is by reacting with the intermediate quinones to form sulfoquinones, and second is by reacting irreversibly with polyphenol oxidase by disrupting the disulfide bonds that are present in the enzyme, thus inactivating it completely. Sulfur dioxide also inhibits the formation of mylide reaction. As we all know, Maillard reaction is a series of non-enzymatic browning reaction between the amino group and the reducing sugar, resulting in the formation of dark brown color pigment. When sulfur dioxide is added to fruit, it is absorbed and converted mostly into the bisulfite ions. These ions then remain free and inhibit the formation of Maillard-type compounds. It mainly acts by reacting reversibly with the reducing sugar and aldehyde intermediates, more strongly with the alpha dicarbonyl intermediate. It can also react irreversibly with alpha beta unsaturated aldehyde intermediates and lastly by bleaching the brown color pigment. Sulfites react with molecular oxygen to form sulfates, thus protecting the loss of ascorbic acid in fruits and vegetables, thus attributing to its antioxidant property. They also prevent the formation of off flavors caused due to the oxidation of essential oils and carotenoids.
The most eminent role of sulfites in food is for its antimicrobial property, that they have the ability to control the growth of microorganisms. Sulfites at low pH value of food, which is less than 4.5, are effective against yeast and mold. Whereas at high pH value of food close to neutral, they are effective against bacteria selectively on gram-negative bacteria such as Enterobacteriaceae and E. coli. Sulfites and its salts are active when they are in undissociated form and at the pH of food which is less than the pKa value of sulfite used as preservative. Sulfites are highly pH dependent, thus they take different forms in different pH levels. Bisulfite ions predominates in acidic pH, while sulfite ions predominates in the neutral pH. The antimicrobial property of sulfite is inversely proportional to the pH value of food to which it is added. As shown in the table below, when pH value decreases, there is an increase in free SO2 concentration, resulting in high effectiveness against microbes. Mechanism of action of sulfites against microbes is interesting. It inhibits and prevents major life-existing biological metabolism, thereby deteriorating the growth of microorganisms. One such is affecting the energy metabolism, wherein sulfites readily inhibits lactose dehydrogenase enzyme that prevents NAD production, in turn preventing the NAD-dependent carbohydrate biomechanism. Eventually, this affects energy metabolism of microbes. Further, SO2 breaks the disulfide bonds of protein structures, destroying the protein stability, thus retarding the protein synthesis. Also, sulfur dioxide reacts on pyrimidine bases by nucleophilic attack on cytosine and thymine pairs that breaks DNA structure, ultimately leads to the death of microbes. Sulfites are used in wine, soft drinks, and dried fruits like apricots to control the growth of microorganisms and to prevent the color of the food. In meat products, sulfites play a role in extending the shelf life of controlling growth of microorganisms and preventing oxidation of deoxymyoglobulin to form oxymyoglobulin that causes discoloration of freshly cut meat when exposed to oxygen for 20 to 30 minutes. Sulfites exhibits its antimicrobial activity at 200 parts per million. Besides many beneficial aspects in food preservation, they are highly toxic.
The toxicology of sulfur dioxide and sulfites has been the subject of several reviews. Sulfites are generally low in toxicity with a lethal dose of 1000 to 2000 mg per kg. The toxicology of sulfites was discovered in the 1970s as its usage was linked to anaphylactic reactions and symptoms such as dermatitis, flushing, and abdominal pain. In 1946, it was discovered that sulfur dioxide in the amount of 62 mg per kg or more would cause physiological changes in rats. Stunted growth, polyneuritis, and atrophy in both bone marrow and visceral organ had been observed in the rats that consumed sulfites. Sulfites also cause deep keratitis and iritis if it is in contact with the eyes, as demonstrated by Grant in 1947. The main concern associated with the exposure of sulfites, however, lies within asthmatic individuals who suffer from adverse respiratory symptoms and skin sensitivities upon exposure. Let's now explore the first case study regarding the effect of sulfites on asthmatic individuals.
One of the main applications of sulfating agents is to freshen foods in restaurants. In 1986, Martin and Tim discovered that sulfite-containing salad fresheners, even when used as recommended, could leave 900 mg per kg sulfite residue on the food product, which could be harmful. This study was followed up by Howland and Simon in 1989, who challenged asthmatic patients with lettuce that had been treated with sulfite-containing salad fresheners. The results showed that the patients exhibited a significant decrease in forced expiratory volume upon consumption. As a result, the FDA banned the use of sulfites on fruits and vegetables that were to be served raw to customers. Let's now look at the second case study. In 1986, it was investigated that sulfur dioxide is a severe causative agent for wine-induced asthmatic individuals. Challenge studies were then conducted to confirm this. Bush and his team reported on the observed decrease in forced expiratory volume among patients who consume sulfite-containing wine. Valley and Thompson also challenged wine-induced asthmatic individuals to a high sulfite concentration, and the result indicated that patients exhibited lower expiratory volume as well. In 1988, sulfite-sensitive asthmatic individuals were challenged to sulfite-containing foods and mixed results were obtained. It was therefore concluded that not all sulfur-sensitive individuals would react to all sulfite-containing foods.
The safety and technological reasons for using sulfites are investigated by Food Standards Australia and New Zealand before their use as a food additive is accepted. A food additive is only approved if no harmful effects are likely to result from its use in foodstuffs. Codex Alimentaris, the internationally accepted standard model, is used as the basis for the assessment of the chemical and dietary exposure of food additives. Following appropriate testing, often used in animal models, a safety or uncertainty factor, usually of 100, is added to establish a guidance value, the acceptable daily intake. This is the amount of a food additive that can be consumed every day for an entire lifetime without adverse effect. The current ADI for sulfites, expressed as sulfur dioxide, is 0 to 0.7 mg per kg of body weight. The dietary exposure takes into consideration the amount of the food chemical a population consumes. The most common contributors to sulfite exposure in children are sausages and soft drinks, while for adults, it is beer, sausages, and white wine. The exposure is compared with the ADI value in order to work out the level of risk to the population. The European Food Safety Authority recently identified that exposure estimates to sulfur dioxide and sulfites were higher than the current ADI level for all population groups. This has consequently led to the re-evaluation of sulfites as a food additive in Europe. Once FSANZ agrees that a food additive should be approved, it then needs to be approved by the government ministers. If approved, the use of sulfites in a food must be declared in the ingredients list on the label of packaged food when it is present in concentrations of 10 mg per kg or more. The sulfites must be labelled by their prescribed class name, e.g. preservative, followed by the additive's specific name, such as sulfur dioxide, or their code number. In unpackaged food such as dried fruit in the supermarket bins, the presence of the sulfites must be declared with the display of the food. Alternatively, the consumer is able to request the information. To conclude, the use of sulfites in food is important in maintaining a fresh and appealing look in a number of fruits, vegetables, and meat products. This is important for businesses where consumers base their choice of product on image. However, their negative effects also need to be taken into consideration. Skin irritations and adverse respiratory symptoms have led to FSANZ ensuring there are strict limits to levels and the type of sulfites that can be added to our food. As consumers, these regulations are put in place to allow us freedom of choice, but more importantly, to protect us.